the former 21st overall draft pick in the 2024 NBA draft, 4 spots after the Lakers selected Dalton Knecht 17th overall with their draft pick. You know, if not for Dalton Knecht falling in the draft and falling to 17th overall to their draft pick, not being able to pass up the chance in drafting him and taking him 17th overall, they may very well have drafted Yves Missi. At the time, they had a clear and obvious need for a center. Even with Anthony Davis on the team and having Jackson Hayes behind him, they don't, and they still really don't have their long-term answer at center. But maybe with Yves Missi, they could. And according to a new report from Michael Grangi of Toronto Sportsnet, he might be back in the trade market, saying quote-unquote, "I have also heard from multiple sources that second-year center Yves Missi is available from New Orleans as the Pelicans try to focus their rebuild around rookie big Derek Queen." Like I said, he may have been directly replaced already, despite being in his second year in the NBA, despite showing promise as a rookie, averaging over 9 points per game, over 8 rebounds per game, over 1 block per game, and shooting a decent 55% from the field, showing promise on both ends of the court, albeit being very raw yet and still being pretty raw now. Only 21 years old, only in his second year in the NBA, but is a former first-round draft pick. He is a guy that theoretically fits the need around Luka Doncic, being that athletic lob threat, rim protecting big that is more of a traditional big, but kind of does the stuff that works well with Luka Doncic, what we've seen work well with him and Jackson Hayes for example, what we have seen maybe not work so great between himself and Deandre Ayton, as Ayton does not quite fit that profile. Yes, he can kind of do it, but isn't quite as athletic, isn't quite the rim protecting archetype, the rim running archetype that Luka Doncic does kind of prefer and does like to play with. I mean, he's even been vocal about liking to play with Jackson Hayes, saying the chemistry is there between them and he simply likes playing with him, which he has not really translated to playing with Deandre Ayton. I don't think that he hates playing with him and that he doesn't like playing with him, but definitely not to the level of playing with Jackson Hayes, and again, simply the skill set and archetype that he offers on the court with Luka Doncic. And again, that might be replicable to a guy like Yves Missi. So with that in mind here, could we or should we see the Lakers pursue Yves Missi on the trade market, given that he is available in trade talks and that he probably won't have an incredibly high price tag, a guy that could be the future at their center position, either at their starter or backup, but definitely long term. I think it definitely could be a viable option for them, given that yes, they have an obvious need at the wing and for a 3-and-D two-way talent at the wing, but even so, they don't have a long-term answer at center either. So yes, I think they maybe should do it, and I think it definitely is at least worth talking about, which they might be talking about too. After all, even after they signed Deandre Ayton, signing him back in early July and kind of having their team built around him at that starting center spot, we still heard about them being linked to a number of center targets. Number 1 being Daniel Gafford, former Luka Doncic teammate Daniel Gafford, yet another guy that fits that skill set and the type of big that Luka likes to play with. On top of that, we've heard them once again be linked to Walker Kessler, prior to him getting hurt, which yes was a few months ago, but yet another guy they've been linked to, that young center archetype that fits well around Luka Doncic. I think there's an obvious trend here. You know, even after signing Deandre Ayton, even after his production fell off a bit, even before that for that fact too, they've continuously been interested and been linked to a number of center trade targets. Again with Gafford, Kessler, even a few more that I didn't name like Bobby Portis, and kind of linked to Yves Missi too, dating all the way back to last year's trade deadline, reportedly checking in on his availability, along with guys like Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Duren, so on and so forth. Yes, I do think they have interest in adding a center, maybe not their top trade target, but I wouldn't completely rule it out at this year's trade deadline. After all, they do seem to be prioritizing the future rather than the present of their team, which could mean a higher likelihood for a trade for a guy like Yves Missi, a 21-year-old that might not be quite ready yet, but definitely could fit a 3 to 5+ year outlook with Luka Doncic going forward, and that timeline that we keep hearing so much about. So, what would it take to get Missi, and if they could get him, what would they get with him? Well, let's say they do find a way to get him, and yes, we'll touch on what a trade would look like and what they'd have to give up for him, at least very likely. But for why they would even want him to begin with, yes, again, he fits the archetype of what Luka likes to play with, is a rim protector, this season averaging 1.3 blocks per game in under 19 minutes per game, translating to well over 2 of them per 36 minutes. On top of that, he's a pretty good rebounder, grabbing 5.5 again in under 19 minutes per game, translating to nearly 11 of them per 36 minutes. On top of that, he is a good rim runner, can grab the rebound and then immediately help push the ball up the court. Not quite himself, but he can definitely dish it out to Luka Doncic, LeBron, Austin Reeves, then follow them up the court and be a lob threat and fill the lane. Yes, he can definitely do that too. No, he doesn't offer much floor spacing from the 3-point line. In fact, he doesn't offer any of it. Hasn't made a 3-point shot yet. Has taken 2 of them, but that's not quite his game. Isn't what a Drew Timme is for their team right now. Isn't even a Deandre Ayton from the mid-range. Isn't going to offer any of that. But like what Luka Doncic played with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, he would be able to offer that, at least to some degree. And well, to kind of contextualize that, if you like advanced stats and if you believe in them, this coming from bbullindex.com, using his player impact per 100 possessions on the court, this season ranking in the 72nd percentile in wins above replacement per LeBron rating. Yes, that's a real rating and actually a pretty good one. On top of that, having a C grade in offensive LeBron rating, even in spite of not being a floor spacing big, not from the 3-point line anyway. Having an A grade for defensive LeBron rating, all around making an impact on defense. Even if you look to his perimeter defense, is even a decent switchable big. Having a B- grade in perimeter isolation defense, a C grade in ball screen navigation. No, he obviously can't defend one-on-one for multiple possessions on the 3-point line, but he can switch a little bit and definitely can move his feet, in addition to the good rim protection. And directly showing that rim protection, having an A grade in pretty much all categories of interior defense, an A grade for rim protection, rim disruption, rim deterrence, help defense talent, screen or mobile defense, and screen or rim defense. The only sub-A grade per B-Ball index does happen to be post defense, grading out with a B+. So all around, and despite playing for a pretty poor defensive team, which can tend to drag down your ratings, and especially for a player that doesn't play that much like Missi, this is pretty impressive. Again, maybe you don't care about advanced stats, but if you do, they do point to Yves Missi being pretty effective, especially on defense, and even showing some good ability on offense too, in spite of the lack of 3-point shooting. And well, for the cherry on top here, the Pelicans do happen to be 10.3 points per 100 possessions better with Yves Missi on the court compared to being off the court. So once again, a pretty good reflection of his overall impact and value on the court. However, then with what it would take to get him, and if we could somehow make a trade work for him, I don't think it would take a first-round draft pick, but probably pretty close to it. No, he doesn't have a large salary at this point, again is a 21st overall draft pick, so is pretty comparable to what Dalton Knecht makes. In fact, we could make the money work by trading Dalton Knecht, though I don't think the Pelicans would want that. Missi has thus far proven to be a more effective player, a more impactful player, especially lately, so he does have more trade value. On top of that, they have a similar player to Dalton Knecht with Jordan Hawkins, a good 3-point shooter that has not quite worked out for them, so I don't think they'd want Dalton Knecht, at least not for the main trade asset in a trade directly for Yves Missi. So in my opinion, we probably would have to expand it. And while I'd love to say that we could get Herb Jones with him, I think that might be a bit of wishful thinking. Yes, I'd love to do it, and I'd love to get both of them through a trade, but I really doubt we have enough trade assets. Barring us trading our first-round draft pick for multiple lesser first-round draft picks, I don't see it happening. Even if we did that, I still think it would be pretty tough. So with that in mind, I think it would probably be something like maybe a different player like Saddiq Bey with Yves Missi, therefore trading an expiring contract like Vincent or Kleba, simply to help the Pelicans relieve their salary cap and their long-term payroll, rather than taking on a contract even like Dalton Knecht that does have a couple more years on it. Maybe we could find a pathway to Missi through that route, either with a guy like Saddiq Bey again, or maybe a Jose Alvarado, adding a different player with him and getting a bit more trade value back in return, so we can maybe justify offering a bit more in return. But those are only my thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. How do you feel about Yves Missi as a trade target? Do you think it would be worth it? Would not be worth it? Does he fit the long-term outlook and probably be worth what it would take to get him? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that will pretty much do it for this one. And if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.